A few more seconds. Okay, you may start.
Good evening and welcome to the Finance and Claims Committee of the Norwalk Common Council for today, Thursday, June 9th, beginning the meeting at 7:02 p.m. And we have a fairly streamlined agenda. I'll start with the roll call. Councilmember David Hooverman.
Present.
Councilmember Tom Keegan.
Here.
Councilmember Jen McMurray.
Here.
Councilmember Diana Revelous.
Here.
Councilmember Nora Najelski-Eichner.
Here she is.
We're doing the roll call, Nora.
I'm here. My apologies.
And myself, Greg Burnett. So we have a quorum. Thank you. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is public participation. No emails were sent in for us to cover. Is there anyone, do we have any participants? I don't see any attendees with their hands raised. So I will assume there's no one zooming in that wishes to speak. So we will move forward and at this point close public participation. Let me quickly display the agenda. Okay. So the fourth item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the May 12th, 2022 regular meeting. Do we have a motion? I see Councilmember Diana Revelous has her hand up. Thank you. Do we have any additions, deletions, or changes to the minutes? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the minutes as presented, show by the sign of raising your hand, and it is unanimous. Thank you. So that moves us on to our tax collectors report, and that will be items number 5, 6, and 7. So we have our tax collector here with us to bring us some very great news. Well, I'll hold off on that. That'll be item 7, but we'll start off with the Claims Committee report.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay, the Claims Committee report for this month includes a number of refunds that we have already processed without your approval, but due to the dollar amount, there is one special request. It is for 2 years worth of sewer use charges that were deemed to be correctable by the Water Pollution Control Authority. My office bills sewer use and industrial pretreatment program on behalf of the WPCA. They made an adjustment to the sewer use for a parcel at Wilton Avenue, and it was based on flow. They were billed based on flow, approximately $13,000 a year. So those taxes, those sewer use charges were paid by the taxpayer, and it's determined we need to give the money back. They're owed $25,424. Timber Ridge Associates LLC, they're based in Stamford. So that particular item, I would need to have you vote on. The rest is for informational purposes only.
Let me just bring that up really quick so everyone can see the specific claims.
On the very last page of the claims, it's on page 3. There were not a lot of claims this month. It's the very last item. There you see it.
So it's a total of, is it two separate items or are we considering it as one?
It's just one. It's one refund for $25,424, representing 2 years worth of sewer billing.
Okay. Okay. Do we have any questions as it relates to the Claims Committee report? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of approving the Claims Committee report, which will include the adjustments as noted, please show by raise of hand. And it is unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, so that will be passed on to the full council, is that correct?
That is correct. So that will go before the full council for approval at the Tuesday, June 14th meeting, which will be next week.
Okay, thank you. Just so you know, we don't issue that refund until the full council approves it. The next two items that we have for you are the end of May 2022 month-end report and the narrative that accompanies it. We are, as of the end of May, at 99.24% of our adjusted levy for property tax. That adjusted levy did decrease more than $5 million since the beginning of the fiscal year. And so I'm tracking against a true number, which is the remaining receivable. So that's why that 99.24 is so high for the end of the month of May. The city did budget for assessment appeal reduction, but 5.1 million so far in this fiscal year came out of that receivable levy on the 2020 grand list, which was due in July of 21 and January of 22, due to assessment appeals, court cases where taxpayers appealed their 2018 revaluation. So the 99.24% is a great number, but just bear in mind, in the interest of disclosure, I do have to point out to you that that receivable did drop because of those assessment appeals. In terms of prior year's collections, you can also see that we are still running ahead of where we were last year by about $1.3 million. There have also been funds taken out of those collections due to assessment appeals as well. But we're still running ahead of last year. That's primarily because of the tax sale that we held in October of 2021 during this fiscal year. There is no tax sale this year. Normally at this time of year, in July, we would be holding a tax sale, but this is an off year. So our next tax sale will be scheduled for July of 2023, a year from now. We'll start working on that sale in November of this year. So what we're doing in the meantime is we're working on business personal property. We're still using our state marshals to serve warrants door to door and to garnish bank accounts. That's been pretty successful. We've been doing about 25 new warrants a month. We did a wage garnishment for city and Board of Ed employees who owe. And the other news, of course, is the new billing. The Board of Estimate and Taxation set our mill rates the first Monday in May by charter. I don't have our bills at the printer yet, but if all goes well and the stars align and everything that I need to do gets done tonight, he will have those files tonight because they're running as I speak. And I anticipate, if all goes well, the bills should be in the mail by about the 24th of June. And I will update you on that if it goes any faster, but typically it takes about 2 weeks from the time I get the file to him. There's a lot of moving pieces to this. We're going to do what we do in other years where we have basically our Norwalk bank branches for participating banks. We have about 11 participating bank branches that serve as satellite payment locations for us. Taxpayers can drive up, walk up, to the bank during the bank's regular hours and pay their Norwalk property taxes at the bank rather than coming to City Hall, navigating our parking lot here. That's a good service that a lot of people take advantage of. They want a payment in person and they can do it at the bank. So that's going to happen. People can still pay over the phone. They can pay online. They can pay with an electronic check, which is what we are trying to promote. It's a very safe, effective way of paying. They can still come to City Hall if they like. So we're gearing up for that. And I will keep you posted. I'll probably send out an email. I usually send it, I believe, to you, Greg, and you can forward it when I know exactly when they're going out. And I like to have those of you who are on the committee who are in Norwalk, if you could just shoot me an email when you get your bill, because I like to track it within town and see about how long it takes. Because if I mail on a Friday, I want to see, are you getting them on Monday? Are you getting them on Tuesday? Is there one section of town that gets them 3 days later? Those are the kind of things I like to know because we get a lot of phone calls. So if you would kindly, if you remember when you get your bill, just shoot me an email, let me know you got it. The only other thing I have a wee bit of bad news, which is that we're short-handed again. We are recruiting again for our cashier clerk. We have a vacancy in the office. We're going to try to maintain our office hours, which we currently have, which is 8:30 to 4. Probably when it gets busy in the collection, we'll stay open till 4:30. But both our office and the assessor's office are dealing with being a little bit shorthanded right now. So we appreciate everybody's patience with that. And I'm glad to field any questions that you have for me.
Councilmember Hooverman.
Thank you, Chairman Burnett. Hey, Lisa, I have an oddball question. I've meant to ask this over the years. Why does it seem that percentage-wise, traditionally, the sewer levy tax and the IPP lags behind in amounts on the percentage basis? It's always slightly behind the tax collection. I just was curious if there's a reason for that.
I really don't know. I mean, the collection rate for the taxes is the combined rate for real estate, business, personal property, and motor vehicle. And as you can see, the amount for motor vehicle is always lower because motor vehicle is harder to collect. But the amount that we collect in motor vehicle is less. I don't really know.
Okay.
We actually do pretty well with sewer use because we bill our sewer use on the real estate bill. We're as far as I know, we're the only municipality in Connecticut that does it this way. Most towns have a separate bill for sewer use, and it's harder to get it paid because the escrow agents won't pay it. But we bill it as a fee tacked onto the real estate bill. So we send it to the escrow agents where individuals have a mortgage and an escrow account, and the bank pays the sewer as well as the real estate. So that right there accounts for about 16,000 parcels that get paid pretty much automatically. It might lag behind because other people, sometimes they don't want to pay their sewer bill, and if they can figure out how to separate it out, they won't pay it. It's a smaller bill. I don't know. I'm guessing.
It just always something I wanted to ask. I have one other question, and this is the personnel question. You had mentioned last month that you were anticipating the delay in getting the tax bills out because you were waiting on information from the assessor's office. Have we caught up with that information, or is this still part of the personnel issue that we've been talking about? We're struggling because of that.
It's a little of both, but we're making progress.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Dakowitz.
Thank you, Chairman Burnett. Just a couple of comments. First of all, there have been vacancies in both the assessor and the collector's office. There was a resignation several weeks ago at the critical time of processing, and that's part of the reason there's been a delay. I want to congratulate the assessor and the collector on the close coordination over the last several weeks. The data goes back and forth several times from assessor to collector. Collector does some processing, then it goes back to the assessor. There's testing, and it really requires close coordination. As expected, the bills are probably going out 1 or 2 weeks later than they usually do, but they're still well ahead of the deadline of June 30. The other thing I would comment on that I think is a very good positive that Lisa has done over the years is making it as convenient as possible for people to pay the bills. There are many different methods. We start with the counter, and during COVID, we even had a window so people could come to City Hall and pay while observing distancing requirements. In addition, we have abilities to pay by phone, to pay by internet, and the ability through the cooperation with our local banks where people can go to their local bank and pay their bills. So we try to make it as easy and convenient as possible for all of the taxpayers. And I think that's a real big positive for our collector office. And maybe that's part of why we distinguish ourselves when we do collections.
Yes, Councilmember Hoover.
Thank you, Chairman Burnett. This brings up an interesting question to me. We get a monthly report from the collection office, and why is it? I'm curious as to why we don't hear from the assessor's office as well, since that's another big prong of our sort of income stream of the city, and why we don't have a report, whether it's not monthly, maybe quarterly, that we hear from the assessor's office and are able to find out about how that side of the income stream of the city is working. I don't know, Chairman Burnett, maybe you can address this. I don't know how, the tradition has been in the past or how things have been before, but I'm curious about that.
Yes, I don't have historical data as to why we do not receive a monthly or quarterly report from the assessor's office. We have periodically asked the assessor to come to the finance committee to provide us with an update. I believe the last update we received, we had the Bill Ford come in to talk about the process and how the process works. But I can take that as a follow-up and speak with our chief financial officer to first understand what type of data is available that would be worthwhile for us to receive, whether it's on a monthly or quarterly basis, and then report back to the committee. But we'll take that as a request to understand what valuable data points would be worthwhile to share with the committee.
Thanks, Chairman Burnett. I appreciate that, because I think about that from time to time, about that particular side of this, with the finances of the city. And we talk a lot about budget, we talk a lot about the tax collection, but we never really go into the assessment side, which is a huge piece of this whole puzzle. So thank you. I appreciate you looking into that.
Any additional questions or comments for the tax collector? I know I would like to thank Lisa and her team. Even though the numbers, you indicated there's been some slight changes to the numbers, still reaching the 99% collection rate is huge. You don't see that across the municipalities within Connecticut. So we're very proud that we do that on a consistent basis. And as you constantly share with us, that has a direct impact to our ability to pay our expenses by ensuring that the budgets that we create, that we're collecting a very high percentage of the taxes in order to cover our expenses and continue to keep the services at a high level within Norwalk. So thank you to your team for the constant and consistent outstanding effort.
I appreciate that very much. And 90% of our revenue, approximately 90% of the revenue that you as policymakers use to fund the services you feel are necessary, 90% comes from property taxes. So that's part of why we take it as seriously as we do. And that high current rate allows the Board of Estimate to set a lower mill rate because you have less as an uncollectible, which is why we take enforcement as seriously as we do and are as persistent and consistent as we try to be. But we depend on you folks as policymakers for the backup when we're questioned. And it is very gratifying to me to hear that. So I appreciate that very much and I thank you.
Great. With that, we will those two items were for informational purposes only. So there's no vote or action to be taken. So thank you, Lisa. And again, thank you to your team for the outstanding work.
I will convey that and thank you again and Godspeed, Councilman Keegan. It's been a pleasure. I'll sign off here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving back to our agenda, we will not have a report this month from Oak Hills. We'll table that, the April report, to next month from Oak Hills, which brings us on to item number 9, which reads as follows. A, authorize the mayor to execute the lease NASPO purchase order, State of Connecticut contract 16 PSX 0180, NASPO contract number ADSP 016-169901 with Quadrant Inc. for a 60-month lease, a total amount not to exceed $20,247. Funding available from account 011362-5294. Do we have a motion? Oh, excuse me. Let me also add item B, because they coincide with each other, authorize the purchasing department to issue change orders on the contract for a total not to exceed $2,025. Funding available from account 011362-5294. Do we have a motion on 9A and B? I see Councilmember Jen McMurray. Thank you. And we have our purchasing, Sharon Connors. Help me with your title, Sharon.
Purchasing agent.
Yes, purchasing agent. There it is, right on the Zoom screen. Only if I could read.
That's okay.
Who is here to walk us through this particular request. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Chairman Burnett. Good evening, everybody. Our current postage machine is set to expire at the end of the month. We currently executed under the previous state contract number with the state of Connecticut for a postage machine through Quadient. And Quadient's formerly known as NeoPost. They had changed names, I believe in 2020 timeframe. So what has changed? Not much. Actually, BOE, the main campus in City Hall, is going to be sharing our machine. Actually, they are currently sharing our machine right now. So the replacement will be a like-for-like replacement machine, the core machine itself. We are going to add a dynamic weigh scale to it, which will allow the mailroom staff team to basically take the mail, throw it on a conveyor belt, have it weighed and scaled, and then say stamped effectively without any manual keying of postage, which then in turn gives us a better postage rate. So currently, if we looked at the past year's data, we did about 84,245,000 pieces of mail. So we worked with Quadient to make sure that we still had the proper amount right size machine for our volume. And it is this perfect fit for us. The mailroom staff likes the machine. It's easy to use. Our team uses it to bill back to the departments on their postage usage. So in that case, we like to exercise our option to procure the machine through the state contract, which is NASPO, which is, if you want to know the acronym definition, is National Association of State Procurement Officials, which allows the municipalities to piggyback off of. So using these cooperative agreements allows us, we don't have to take our bandwidth to put something out to bid. It's already been bidded through these cooperative associations. So it's more effective use of our time.
Thank you, Sharon.
Any questions?
Any questions or comments? I think you did use an operative word, which is this potential savings, correct, over last year?
I think, well, I don't think we had any saving. We will have savings using the scale. So we'll have, instead of, if we do bulk mailing, they would have to manually key it. And you can get the weight wrong, especially with the larger volumes of pieces of mail. By having the dynamic scale, it would automatically weigh it and automatically put the correct postage by weight onto that piece of mail. So then you could have savings on the pieces or multiple pieces if we do a bulk, a mass mailing.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Hoovman, I saw you had your hand up.
No, the question I have is maybe larger, just that, are we slowly cutting back on the amount of actual paper we're sending out, or are we still sending out, the same volume that we've been doing over the past, say, 5 years, 10 years? I mean, are we making an effort to utilize electronic media more, electronic sending more?
I would have to look at 2020 data. The postage meter has the last 2 years data on it. Within the past 2 years, we do the tax sale. The tax collector's office does that. So that communication to the individuals that those properties are going to the tax sale, those have to be sent via certified mail. For that tax sale, it was about 800 some odd pieces of certified mail. We're also looking at other opportunities within our NASPO contract to use e-certified mail. So instead of sticking a label on it or handwriting it and get charged, we'll say the average letter size would be $7.90, we could get a $1 to $2 savings on that piece of mail if we use the e-certified system. The tax sale happens every other year. So next year we would see possibly a bump up. We also had a big COVID mailing distribution within the school system. They brought all that centralized package that was going to the parents and the families, all those students, that was brought to the City Hall, and that was done through the mailroom at City Hall. One would think what mail would go away, but we still have a lot of mail. P&Z and code enforcement uses a lot of mail.
Yeah, there's still a lot of that's done by mail, and it's a reality that we're still gonna have to use paper, and I understand that, but I was just curious if there were numbers on whether we're doing less of it, we're able to do less of it, if we're able to automate certain systems that allow people to opt in to receive certain things via electronically, then as opposed to paper mail. I don't know if that's possible, if it's even able to be done statutorily, but it would be interesting to find out if we can cut, if we can save money anywhere, those are good places, I think. So,
yep. I think unfortunately COVID has it forced us to look at different ways to send things out too. So
sure, yeah, great. Thank you very much. No, that would be great. And it'd be nice to see those numbers if you pull them off the machine at some point, and just
Sure.
be able to let us know what those numbers are. Thank you.
Not a problem. Any other questions?
Okay, seeing no further questions or comments, I'll call for a vote on items A and items B. All those in favor show by the sign of raising your hand. All right, it's unanimous. So this item, Sharon, will move forward to the Common Council on Tuesday, June 14th for full council approval.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Have a good evening, everybody.
You too.
Mr. Chairman, can I, before we go on, I had my hand up before when you were talking about Oak Hills. And
Yes.
I'd like to request that next month, if we have someone from Oak Hills, but also if we have someone from the legal department, because I'd like to get a stronger explanation of how the authority works within the statutory framework of the city of Norwalk, and then how the golf course and tennis center and conservation and park work within that framework as well. Because I've been confused about a number of things that I'd love to, in this committee, have a conversation with the authority and legal to understand how that structure works. Because there's the golf course itself is a profit structure. And I'd like to understand how that works with an authority that is a city agency. So how all that works, if that would be possible.
Absolutely. Point well taken. And we will pass that request on to Oak Hill so they come prepared at the next meeting to address those questions that you had.
Yeah, and it would be good if we can get someone from the legal office to come in as well to explain statutorily how this works with the state and the city, how our ordinance functions within that also. Thanks.
Correct. Yes. And I believe Attorney Callahan has worked very closely with the authority, and we'll have him provide input as well.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the item 10 on the agenda, which reads as follows: authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute agreement with Clifton Larson Allen LLP, CLA, for additional work related to Gatsby 87 implementation, a total amount not to exceed $70,000, account 011310-5258. Do we have a motion on this item? I don't know whose hand went up first, but Council Member Nora Najelski-Eichner, thank you. She moves the item, and I will pass the baton to our Chief Financial Officer to give us background on this item.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to rely on Chitsame to get into some of the details, but let me give you a high level. GASB 87 is a new accounting treatment for leases. There are two types of leases we enter into. One are leases of property that's owned by the city. We allow people to use those assets and for which we are paid a fee, lease income. There are also situations when we are acquiring goods or services. And instead of purchasing them, we lease them. And in that case, those are cash outflows from us, and we are acquiring those goods and services under a lease contract. GASB 87 has imposed new rules on how we account for all of these leases. It's a tremendous undertaking. We have to get our arms around all of the leases that the city has entered into, go back to our accounting records, see how we have accounted for them historically, and then make sure they are all being properly accounted to comply with this new regulation. It's going into effect for this year, the fiscal year ending June 30, 2022, the audit of which we expect to be completed December 31st of 2022. There are many municipalities who have sought assistance in getting all of this data and then making sure that the accounting records are correct. Clifton Larson Allen is our auditors, and they say they have an approach with software and with people, and they have made sure that there is no conflict of interest with their audit responsibilities. And they made a proposal which we think is wise and useful for us to implement this first year. Going forward, beyond that, we could probably handle it on ourselves, but this first year of implementation, we require assistance. Chitsime, maybe you can go into some more of the details of what we have to do and why we need this assistance.
Right, just like as Henry mentioned in our memo, this is a new government accounting standard that we need to implement for this fiscal year 2022, ending June 30th. And with this new government accounting model, we need to recognize all our leases on the financial as a balance sheet instead of an income statement. So with the assistance of the auditor, they will assist us in preparing the footnote and the statement. So that way we get it correct the first year. As this Henry mentioned, it's a big undertaking. We've already started the collecting all the leases, and we've identified almost 80 to 90 leases. Most of them are going to be applicable to GASB 87. Some are not. So with this undertaking, we ask for assistance from our auditor to get us through this fiscal year 2022 audit.
I would just add, one of the key aspects of this is developing a database that has all of our leases, all of the pertinent, relevant information that we need, both from a legal point of view, what is the lease, what's it for, what's the term, et cetera, but also from an accounting point of view. So by accumulating the database, the accountants can then review and make sure that we do the accounting treatment, right? The database will be ours, so we have it, and that's why we feel it's just a worthwhile endeavor.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes, Councilmember Hoovman.
Thank you, Chairman Burnett. So Henry, this is a one-time expense?
Well, there's a one-time transition, okay? So in coordinating, obviously, with our legal department, we found some leases that may be decades old, and we may not have a lot of detail on them. There were leases we weren't aware of until we went out and inquired because, as Chitsime said, historically, we might not have had to put them in the accounting statements. Okay, so that's been a change. So part of it is getting a complete database. Here's everything that we have. We can put it into the database. We could sort of learn with the accountants how do these things should be treated. And then going forward, as we add leases or update them, we should be able to handle that. It's not going to be 80 in a year. So yes, I would say this is probably a one-time expense. There may be a little bit the next year as a dribble on, but I think in general, this should be a one-time expense for the transition.
Okay.
Question, Henry, and Chisame, is this an undertaking just on the city side, or is the Board of Ed also involved in this, or is this being handled separately?
It's both. So the Board of Ed do have leases that they are aware of this GASB 87 statement. And we work both with the different department, legal department and Board of Ed department to compile all these leases.
So this database will consist of all leases for the city of Norwalk, which includes both on the city side as well as the Board of Education. Is that correct?
That is correct.
You know,
Great.
the certified financial statements are for the entire city plus Board of Ed. So this will be a coordinated effort. And as Chitsame mentioned, we've already started those discussions and aggregation of data.
Councilmember McMurray.
Thank you, Chair Burnett. So after this initial step with the outside source and we get comfortable with where our leases are, we have the database. As we start to add new leases or we are paying for leases, how is that process going to work? Or are we going to work that out with this other company this year to sort of figure out how leases are added moving forward in the future to make sure they're included in the database?
I guess what my vision would be is that Chitsame's controller shop has handled leases in the past, their accounting entries or their memorandum entries. Now going forward, the difference would be we would make sure that we enter each lease into the database and we have the accounting entries that are supported by the entries in the database, which are supported by the actual lease agreements. It just becomes part of the normal and usual accounting process. So there's a little bit more work for the controller's office.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yes, Councilmember Nora Najelski-Eichner.
I have a tiny and generally irrelevant point to say, which is that I think it's extremely cool that GASB is based in Norwalk. It's one of the many awesome things about Norwalk that we should celebrate. That's all.
Fair enough.
Does that come with a discount, Harry? I guess not. Huh?
I know we should ask for one, right? Have them come present to us and, say we should get something
Well,
off
then-
advertising for them.
They may come back with their, tax bill, so I don't want to go down that road. May I comment that, Greg, you're looking more and more like Dr. J. Julius Irving. I don't know whether it's my glasses or your youthfulness, but I'm waiting to see you fly through the air with a dunk.
Wow, that's taking us back several years. Julius Irving, wow, okay. But I'll take that as a compliment, Henry. Thank you.
Compliment.
Okay, any further comments or questions about this? Even though it's I guess I can consider it a mandate that's coming down, it is helping us organize all of our leases into one complete database where we can see all of the information. I hope that database will also include the terms and conditions of the leases, because this way we will have some headlights in terms of when those leases will be ending, and understand what potential additional financial impact it might have as those leases ending, and whether we would be reinstating those leases or looking for other options. So I think data is always important, especially as it relates to finances. So this is actually, I think, a good thing.
Well, we'll be happier after it's done.
Right. Okay, with that, all those in favor of this particular item, show by the sign of raising your hand. And it is unanimous. Thank you. So Henry and Chitsame will bring this item forward to the full council on Tuesday, June 14th for full council approval, so we can move forward.
Thank you.
Great. With that, if
Motion to adjourn.
I was going to ask if any council member on the finance committee had any additional comments, but obviously that is your comment. So
I would interject. I think this is an appropriate time to thank Tom Keegan for his service.
Yes.
He's been wonderful. I don't know how he has roller skates to get him to all the different subcommittee meetings, but he's been wonderful, a real value added to the council and to the city. We thank you for your service and we wish you all the best in your retirement.
Thank you, Henry, and not bad for a guy who can't even balance his checkbook, right?
No, plus minus $1,000, we're okay.
Yeah, here and there, right?
Yes, and absolutely echo those thoughts. Tom is always a voice of common sense and reason, which is so very important when it comes to the numbers. So thank you, Tom, for all that you've done.
Thank you, everyone. I sincerely appreciate it. It's been an honor, Henry, working with you, and you know that.
Tom, don't be a stranger.
And everyone in your office, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And when we send up that back signal toward Florida, we need you to come and help.
I got it.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Great. So with that,
My motion still stands.
your motion is on the table. All those in favor? Actually, we should make it ceremonial and let Tom make the motion.
Go ahead. Actually,
to
Tom,
close
yes. Go ahead. Go
the
ahead,
meeting.
please.
I make a motion that Diana make a motion.
Oh,
You're the best. We do it together. We made a motion to
yes,
We
let,
make a
close this
motion
out.
to adjourn.
let the
Motion to
record
adjourn.
show that we had dual motions to adjourn from Councilmember Tom Keegan and Councilmember Diana Revelous. All those in favor show by the sign of aye. It's unanimous. Thank you both. Again, Tom, all the best to you.
Thanks, Greg. See you
Good
guys.
night. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thank